Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Campaign's Breakfast Briefing on Talent and Technology. I'm Nadeem Qureshi, the Publishing Director at Campaign. It's nice to see everyone again, even though we've just met most of you a couple of days at the Dubai Links Awards, which was another big success, bringing together more than 850 industry leaders, brands, and young talents celebrating the very best of creativity in MENA. Congrats again to the big winners that night. As usual, we have an amazing lineup of panels and speakers. But before we get on with today's event, I want to brief everyone real quickly on the latest news and developments with Campaign and all our partners. We've just announced the Agency of the Year Global Awards shortlist. These awards see MENA shops up against global competition. Agencies from the Middle East have made a strong impact this year with a record number of 9 shortlists among 18 markets shortlisted around the globe. The award ceremony would be held right before Cannes Lions on 12th of June at the glamorous Jumeirah Carlton Tower at London. All the very best to all our MENA entries. Moving on your tables you have the latest edition of Campaign's March issue with the agency's Faces to Watch. We have received a record 485 entries from young talent aged 30 and under, and we have selected 380 of these brilliant individuals who are going to be the face of the industry in the coming years. Next, Campaign will be publishing our annual Saudi report on April 28th. We are now in the process of reaching out to our partners for Saudi agency listings, local expert pieces, and insights with best work created for Saudi clients, and of course, data and research for those planning media campaigns and marketing strategies in Saudi. Please feel free to reach out to me or Anoop to be part of this special country report. Our next event would also be in Saudi, which is Campaign Saudi Briefing in Riyadh on 15th of May at the Sheraton Riyadh Hotel and Towers. Our first event in Saudi this year will gather key stakeholders across government entities, brands, agencies for a morning of networking and in-depth discussions into the dynamic intersection of strategies and technologies shaping the marketing landscape in Saudi Arabia. Here's a short videos on the event. The ticketing for this Saudi event will be live next week, and Anoop and Chantal are in the process of programming this event. So please reach out to them with suggestions on key topics you would like to see covered, and we'll be happy to see you all at our Saudi event next month too. In big news in Saudi as well, the Athar Festival is set to be bigger, bolder, and more this year, with more than 4,000 attendees, 150 plus speakers, and more than 80 activations and new zones like AI, production, luxury, lifestyle, among many others. The Athar Festival will take place on 21st and 22nd October at the Jacques Biennial Foundation in Riyadh. The Athar Awards are KSA's most prestigious accolade for industries and entities and are now open for entries. Here's a brief look at last year's award ceremony. This year, there are 40 new categories to enter in across campaigns, individuals, and teams categories. You can discover all the categories and explore the entry kit at atharfestival.com. And for those who would like to speak on stage at Athar, the call of content is now open. So please visit the website for more questions or for more details. You can get in touch with me and my team here. Coming back to our campaign event, we would like to thank all the partners for supporting us for the event today. Our gold sponsors are Eternity X, Fusion 5, and SeedTag, and you will hear more from them as the day progresses. Please make sure you contribute regularly to campaign. Keep sending those opinion and thought leadership pieces to Anup and his team with your latest news, work, and appointments. Please also scan the QR codes on the agenda paper in front of you to send us your feedback on the event today. That's it from me. I will now hand over the stage to campaigns editor Anup Oman, who will take today's event forward. And thank you once again for attending. And I look forward to our continued discussions and collaborations this year. Thanks a lot.
Welcome to Campaign Middle East, the region's leading title on marketing, advertising, media, and the creative industries. Backed by Motivate Media Group and in partnership with Haymarket UK, we've spent 16 years in the region setting the tone, breaking stories, and shaping conversations for the industry by the industry. From print to digital, podcast to social, we cover it all. More than 330 magazine issues, 100,000 web visitors, 105,000 social followers, and counting. We bring the industry together: Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Qatar, Oman, and the Middle East. Our events and podcasts keep you connected to the latest and greatest the industry has to offer. Campaign breakfast briefings, Campaign Market Minds Roundtable, On the Record.
Hello and thank you for joining us on latest episode of On the Record with Campaign Middle East.
Insightful panels, groundbreaking conversations, you stay ahead of the curve with Campaign. We keep you in the loop with newsletters sent directly to your inbox twice a week. We map the movers, the shakers, the game changers. We cover every corner of the industry. We wrap up the year awarding the best agencies of the region with the highly anticipated Campaign Agency of the Year Middle East Awards. The industry is evolving, so are we. Stay connected, stay ahead, stay tuned to Campaign Middle East.
If you've met Chantel from my team, you'll know whose voice it is on that voiceover. A very good morning to all of you, our extended Campaign Middle East family. On behalf of this incredible publication and representing a wonderful team, it's my honor and privilege to welcome each of you, our speakers, moderators, partners, and delegates, to this iteration of our Campaign Breakfast Briefing, Talent and Technology 2025. Some of us are still reeling from Dubai Links wins a night ago. Any Dubai Links winners in the room today? Yay, let's give them a round of applause. After the party they've had, I'm not surprised they need a bit of sleep today. Exactly 2 months ago, I stood behind a very similar podium at our first event in 2025, and I concluded that speech saying, let's take the lessons learned from Ramadan and apply that to the year ahead. Looks like we've learned some of those lessons while we're still debating the others. Since then, I've had the pleasure to have conversations with many of you over coffee, CMO roundtables, podcast, dinner conversations, and Teams calls, and more recently at Dubai Links this week for fascinating discussions on AI's effect on speed to market, personalization at scale, efficiency, productivity, and more, moving from just intelligence to actionable consumer and customer insights. But beyond the conversation of artificial intelligence, I've also enjoyed conversations around emotional intelligence within leadership. All of a sudden, the human element of creativity and ingenuity have become irreplaceable. This is so much more than B2B, business to business, or B2C, business to consumer. We're moving into a world where, more than ever, AI to AI in an agentic AI world, as well as edge to edge, human to human, is becoming important. In short, the ability to connect with cohorts of hyper-local communities and individuals based on deep insights that we now have on individuals' behavioral patterns, preferences, and purchase intent. But we still have very, very real problems to address in a market where ad fraud still exists at 10 to 14%. Consumers are experiencing ad fatigue. Leaders are struggling to break silos that exist between marketing, sales, product, and finance. Procurement still rules the roost, and where Exco still views creativity as a cost center. It reminds me of what one of the leaders told me this morning. I think he phrased it as, why did the CMO marry the CFO? When I shrugged and I said, I don't know, he said, because the CFO got down on one knee and put the ring up and said, instead of saying, I love you, or instead of saying, you matter, the CFO told the CMO, you can double your ad spend. Yeah, I guess that's good enough a reason to marry someone. That said, we're moving past a digital-first generation where time and attention are the currency of today. In an AI-first generation, we're moving into a generation where trust, transparency, and empathy are going to become the currency of tomorrow. In an industry where margins are low, competition is cutthroat, and the motto somehow seems to be, let's do more with less, it's time to raise some very critical questions. Do we really have talent that knows how to read numbers and draw insights from it? And I don't mean the guy in my gym this morning who was pulling his tummy in while standing on a scale and looking at the mirror. And I told him, listen, pulling your tummy in is not going to make any difference in the numbers. And he told me, yes, it does, because at least that way I can see the numbers. On a serious note, though, in the age of AI, the time has come now to choose quality over quantity, relevance over reach, and meaningful messaging over what's trending. How can marketers balance the agility and the immediacy required of performance KPIs while constantly creating lifetime value by building a brand? Has the time come for us to embrace a more sophisticated approach to data analytics that go beyond these vanity metrics that we've gotten so used to and embrace the distribution of weighted credit and track real-time consumer engagement and deeper metrics? Can we be honest whether we truly understand how users interact with content, where and when attention is most likely to be captured, and what it takes to truly drive customer acquisition and retention? In the age of AI, what skills that were previously required aren't required right now? What can be taught or learned on the job? And what are the non-negotiable skills that leaders must prioritize today on their teams? Hopefully, in the discussions that we have here today, we will address many of these critical concerns. We're at a juncture where understanding the consumer journey in real time is paramount. Modern multi-touch attribution and marketing mix modeling solutions provide a comprehensive view, allowing us to credit where credit is due and tap into deeper metrics that offer real value. Not like this marketing team that I met on Monday who needed to go to therapy because they couldn't figure out whether their mental issues were first click or last click attributed. That aside, we're at a juncture where the industry is not overthinking things, but it's also a little overwhelmed by technology that is outpacing available skill sets, requiring restructuring, mandating upskilling at all levels of the organization, and calling for agile team structures. We're at a juncture where we can embed advertising in relevant contexts, personalize it to people who would benefit from that advertising, offer it to them in a meaningful manner, and place it in places where people are actually going to engage with it organically. Each of these topics represents a piece of a complex puzzle we must solve today, especially as our dependency on AI is becoming as normal as our dependency on the internet. Once again, a lot of what we hear and discuss will no longer be just good conversation today. We're here to learn from each other, understanding how top industry leaders are making it work. We're here to hear their open and honest opinions and figure out the top takeaways that we can actually implement in our daily lives. And on that note, welcome once again to the Campaign Breakfast Briefing, Talent and Technology 2025. Thank you. Now, without further ado, shall we dive straight into it? It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage our keynote speaker for the day, Derek Wong, Chief Business Officer at Eternity X, who will take us on a journey beyond borders, quite literally, capturing Chinese opportunities by driving growth with cultural intelligence and innovation. Without giving too much away, here's a brief outlook. During this keynote, Derek has told me that we will dive into largely untapped consumer segment, which accounts for what I've been told is a third of the world's luxury market and their behavioral patterns, showcasing how brands can connect meaningfully with 1.4 billion microsegments within the global Chinese consumer segment. As Derek walks onto the stage, here's a short video about Eternity X for those who don't know about Eternity X. Derek, over to you.
Where is change? There is an opportunity. At Eternity X, we help the full potential of Chinese audiences, turning data into connection, content into purpose, and vision into growth. LLMs, AI precision targeting, ATMs, effective reach, complex, smart strategy, preferences, Eternity X designed for tomorrow. Asking now of Chinese audiences. Eternity X.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me okay at the back? Good. Okay. Thank you. So, thank you for having us. I'm Derek Wong. I represent Eternity X. We basically help brands target Chinese audiences. I've got a global role, so my job. In here. Perfect. Okay, so I was just saying that I've got a global role, so I kind of go around the world and help our clients, to tap into the Chinese audiences. And previously, I've worked in advertising agencies for many years, so I've got a lot of experience in the Greater China region. So today, I'm very pleased, to be able to share, some of that experience with you. So now. My title is about Beyond Borders, breaking barriers. But what I really want to talk about today is cultural intelligence among the Chinese audiences. Because as I go around the world, I do see some common challenges and also many opportunities, for brands to be able to tap into these Chinese audiences. Now, I'm going to start by throwing some numbers out there, okay? We all know that China is a vast country. So right now, is about 1.4 billion populations, okay? And in terms of internet users, that is a high over 90% penetration among internet. So it is a very digital nation. Now, what many people don't know is right now, there are 60 million Chinese expats working and living overseas. The largest are actually in Southeast Asia, 36 million of them. America, followed by Australia and New Zealand. So there is a lot of Chinese people are now, living and working overseas. Now, the other thing about Chinese people is that they travel. A lot of them travel overseas. So last year, the numbers had it around 140 million Chinese people who actually travel overseas. And based on our experience in this region, it is a very large number here, okay? Now, if we look at one of the reports, pre-COVID, the Chinese tourism accounts for 255 billion economy. So it's a very large opportunities. Now, many people think Chinese people will only travel during the Golden Holiday, which is a national holiday where Chinese people have over a week of holiday. As a matter of fact, based on our research, they travel throughout the year these days. Beyond just national holidays, right now it's only accounted, for 15% of the traveling time. The rest of the year, spring, summer holiday, May Day, New Year Day, Christmas Day, they are out and about all the time. Now, how often do they travel? You can see from the chart there, once, twice, 3 to 5 times, and even over 5 times. Today, a lot of them are actually independent travelers. Group travelings is actually quite a balanced split between the two. Now, here are some of the other insights about the Chinese audiences. Right now, China accounts for 1/3 of luxury goods markets. And post-80s and 90s currently account for over half of those who are traveling outside. Okay, and if you look here, 140 million people traveling out, overseas is quite a large number. But right now, only 13 people in China have a passport. You can imagine that number is only going to grow. I talked about people traveling, like living and working overseas. Based on the latest report by Nikkei Asia, they're estimating another 15,000 high net worth individuals, will basically be working and living overseas. So some very, very staggering facts here, about the China as a market. So in this region particularly, China isn't coming, it's already here. The question is, are we ready to welcome them? Now, I'm going to share some really practical experience that we're seeing here in this region. So, the gap between China and MENA. So let's look at some of the facts here. Dubai last year welcomed 800,000 visitors, and that represents 31% increase. Even Egypt has seen a significant rise in terms of tourism, including the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. However, Chinese people right now, those with a passport, they could visit over 80 countries around the world. And if you're traveling in group, you could visit 115 countries. So there is a lot of choices, for Chinese people. And if you look at the number, Dubai right now in this region is the most visited GCC city, but it's only accounting for 4.4% of 18.7 million total visitors last year. So the growth potential is still huge, and China is interested in this region. So you have opened the door, but we need to be able to invite them into this region properly. Okay, now let's look at some of the other facts. I actually, before I came here, I kind of did some research. I want to know, what are the brands, from this region are being discussed on some of the China's very popular platforms, social platform and search platforms. So Xiaohongshu, I'm sure many of you have heard of them. They are lifestyle platforms. Baidu is a search platform, and then Mafengwo is a travel platform. So I just kind of did some search, Saudi Arabia brands. So I want to see what brands, actually come to top. But here it is. Have a look. A lot of the search results come back is about destinations. It's either I don't know about the MENA brands, or they are just simply not visible on the Chinese platform right now. So imagine 140 million people who are traveling outside. And a lot of them have interest in this region, but the brands aren't visible right now. I can tell you what's very popular. Dubai chocolate. Dubai chocolate had 240 million views. That's a lot. Now, if I do other search, for example, I did the Chinese words, Saudi Arabia, 300 million views. Saudi Arabia tourism, 2.5 million views. A massive gap. When people are interested in Saudi Arabia, but they are not looking much into Saudi Arabia tourism. Now, if I do Dubai, 1.2 billion views. Wow, big numbers. And if you look at tourism, 180 million, hotels, 2.9 million. Don't people need to find a place to stay? But the brands are not visible yet. Property, 130 million. Okay, so again, because of my curiosity, I wanted to learn about this region. So I then went on to see, okay, which are the most valuable brands in this region? And these are the top 20 most valuable brands based on brand finance. So, those brands here, frankly speaking, not many brands are actually well known to Chinese people. So again, I think there's a lot of opportunities, for this region to be, to raise awareness and let Chinese people understand, what your brands is about and the brand values. Now, so I'm going to be showing you some of the conflict that I see in this region. So throughout some of the conversations I have with my clients, a lot of them are saying that we are visa-free now, so Chinese people will come, okay? But in reality, Chinese tourists are traveling, but MENA is still invisible, okay, in their content platform. We all do search. Now, the other common issue is, people think that, they are saying that, our malls are luxury, so we know Chinese people like luxuries. And then visitors should be able to know us. Yes, Dubai Mall is very popular, and Burj Khalifa is all very popular as well. However, MENA brands, that when people know about you, Chinese people also are interested in the culture and the brand values. They want to learn about that, but those narratives are not being told at the moment. So we already have a WeChat account. So those who are already targeting Chinese people, yes, you do have a Chinese, like WeChat account, and you're basically communicating in Chinese. However, when you have a Chinese official account, like a WeChat official account, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a strategy. You just simply have an entry point to it. There's a lot of micro segments in China, okay, and it will require some customized strategy to, to target and engage. So Chinese investors are already coming, okay, but we really need to open the door, okay, to welcome them in properly. So now, here's how I want to leave you, okay, in terms of this. Chinese travelers right now recognize Western brands, not MENA brands. So the opportunity is massive, okay, for Chinese people to learn about the MENA regions as well as the brands. Now, here's another question that I want to throw to the floor. So when we talk about Chinese audiences, what comes to your mind? Anyone? No? Okay, let me just go. Bargain hunters? Yeah, we all love a discount. Who doesn't? Or simply nationalistic buyers? Do Chinese people buy brands made in China? Yes and no. Or copycats? Or simply group tourists with a selfie stick? We all love to take photos. You see a lot of that, when we travel. That's true. But here's the thing, China is not one market. It's actually 1.4 billion micro-segments. There's a lot of them across multiple cities with different economic status. So Chinese individuals are not only tourists. They are luxury buyers, they are investors. Again, the question is, what's preventing Chinese audiences, from embracing your brand and destination? Now, let's meet the Chinese consumers. I could talk for a long time, but I'm just going to give you the summary today. There are 3 segments of audiences that are important for any market, okay, as I visit around the world. The first one is Gen Z, or Alpha, okay, Alpha generation. This generation right now accounted for 19%, 260 million of them out there. As I talked about, most of the people traveling today who are buying luxury, who are buying properties, okay, are these audiences, okay? And they have a different approach in terms of how they spend. They would buy things, okay, for their self-expressions, and they want experience. They prioritize different things than their older generation. The second part of the audience is the affluent travelers. As brands, you will want the affluent audience, and this group of audience right now is the most wanted across all the markets that I visited. Now, based on the research, based on Financial Times research, right now in China, there are about 753 billionaires. If you read The Economist recently, okay, The Economist has put it around 500. So in terms of US dollars billionaire, it's between 500 to 700. But what I want to draw your attention to is those with almost close to $1 million US assets in this already accounted for over 5 million. Okay, and this group of consumers or audiences would actually want different things. The third largest potential segments is actually called what we call signing silver. This audience right now is already 300 million. Now, here's another fact that many of you probably don't know. The retirement age in China used to be 50 years old. Recently, okay, because of the aging population, so the China government has basically moved the retirement age from 50 to 55. Today, okay, these people are 45 years old. In 10 years' time, this number will rise from 300 million to 400 million. So everybody, these audiences are those you need to engage today. So understanding that behavior, okay, is very important. There are multiple segments here. In the next few slides, I want to kind of share what these Chinese audiences want, and a lot of it is down to cultural. Okay, so I'm going to share with you some of the latest trends and most widely discussed trends in China right now. The first one is called ban wei. The literal meaning to that is the smell of work. It used to describe people who's worked really hard, okay, and towards the end of the day, they smell of work. Okay, let me show you a video what that means. Almost 1 billion discussions on this topic in Chinese social platforms. Now, you probably don't get it, because when I first got to know about this term, I don't get it either. But this is a good feeling to have, because in China, we're constantly faced with these new trends, okay, that has been risen, okay, and have been widely discussed. Now, I'm going to show you the second trend. This trend is called city or not. Are you city enough? It used to describe people. Are you sophisticated enough? Are you luxury enough? So these trends, again, is widely talked about, okay? As brands, it's important to know what are the hot trending topics in China, because it gives brands or corporates an opportunity to engage with the audience. So this is a video from a sort of micro KOL, and because he created this trend where it's called city or not, are you sophisticated enough? And brands started to cooperate with them. So I'm going to show you a video of what it looks like.
喝奶茶 city 不 city 啊 ？city 不 city 不太难，城市花和山也敢，摇摇头摆分茶，说出大声 city 啊，city 啊爽爽 ，city 啊。
Okay, and the next trend is about being the eye-catching bag. Young people want to stand out these days. So this term here is trending at 2 billion views in China right now. Okay, and it's also, again, is widely discussed. It practically just means that anyone who wants to stand out. Okay, so here's a video, okay, that's trending at the moment.
Hit you with that
Whose concert is it? Is it the singer or him? So, these are the things that the Chinese people are constantly coming up with. And the other trend, which is very important, is Arab. The topic or the keywords, okay, Arab or Arabic, is actually very, very, highly interested by Chinese people too. And here's a KOL on Xiaohongshu platform. Basically telling people, when you come to these regions, how do you need to behave? And the view is actually not bad. Safety is another thing that's important in the mind of the Chinese people right now. As many of you know, a few months ago, there was a sort of big scandal in Thailand, right, where Chinese tourists got kidnapped, okay, and that overnight is created a massive, issue, for Thailand as a country. So, just 24 hours since the break of the news, there are 10,000 tourists who have immediately cancelled their visit to Thailand. and also 4,600 rooms cancellation. See, these sort of things really impact business or tourism as a market. And if you look at the number of viewership, it's 1.5 billion. Trends just happen overnight. So as brands, it's important, for us to tap into these trends when we engage any type of audiences, really. So now, the last thing that the Chinese people want, is brand authenticity. So Lacoste has been operating in China. And yes, there are brands who would mimic a very successful global brand. So the other brand is called Cartello. So Cartello logo, as you can see, is very similar. So Lacoste went through a lawsuit and they won. So Lacoste, Cartello eventually had to pay 2 million as a fine. And Jaguar Land Rover recently launched a new brand campaign. Now, while the visual is very appealing, but in Chinese social media, it's actually created a bit of a scandal because people prefer the old Jaguar Land Rover brand logo. They like the heritage. They want that brand authenticity. So last year, there were also some scandals as well in China. But here's the caveat, Here's the disclaimer. None of the brands were being boycotted in China. This one, there are 2 campaigns by 2 different Chinese brands. Even Chinese brands sometimes get it wrong. So I'm going to play this video. If you can just look at it carefully and think about what actually goes wrong in terms of this campaign.
广告侮辱性极强，有蝉就有聊不完的话。
Can anyone guess what actually went wrong about this campaign? Nope. No, not there. It's about the culture. It's about culture misstep. Let me just review it. Chinese people don't brew tea from a tea bottle. We brew tea from a clean water. So in these 2 ads, during Chinese New Year, they actually feature Chinese people having tea with a family, but from a tea bottle. So again, this created a lot of issues, for Chinese people, where it talked about, and it actually impacted the brand reputation as well. Now, stereotyping is again another thing to watch out. So this ad is from a laundry brand, from a Chinese brand, where it actually talked about your mother. So buy this laundry brand for your mother. And it actually pissed off a lot of mothers. When the mothers see this ad, what they did is they wrote a note and stick it on the ad and say, do not assume that mothers do your laundry. Perhaps let your dad try it first. And then the other one is about football. I know football is big here, and the use of celebrities also, are very common. Here's the thing, when celebrity does not behave properly, it actually creates some issues as well. So Inter Miami held a football event last year after Chinese New Year, and Mr. Messi actually did not play. He actually did not, so it created a worldwide scandal. Eventually, he had to put together a video to apologize, to the people for not turning up on the field. Now, the other thing is about service. As people become richer, more affluent, it's very similar to the West, where they will start to expect services, particularly from luxury brands. So this is a video that I found on Instagram. This is about the US market, how this consumer talked about turning up the Chanel store, but didn't wear Chanel clothes, and Chanel wouldn't let her in. But let's take a look.
So I'm in Chicago, and the man at the Chanel store opens the door like this much. Like Ratatouille couldn't fit in there. And he's like, hello? Do you have an appointment? Like, he's like Lurch in the Addams Family. Like, you rang? And I'm already on the offensive, and I'm like, no, I don't have an appointment. I have a credit card, I have a bag of carrots popcorn, a basic bitch purse. Am I not allowed to come in at 3:54 on a Tuesday? Evidently not. I don't have an appointment. And to be like treated like you're an interloper. Like, I'm just walking down the street, just opening up a door to just walk into a store.
Now,
I thought that's
similar
what happened.
things.
Like, I didn't.
Similar things actually happened in China as well at the LV store earlier this year, where a consumer turned up, again, didn't dress like what a luxury consumer should dress like. So she asked for the latest collection, and the customer service actually did not care about her. So she was really, really pissed off. What she did, she returned to the store next day. She brought all the cash, about 84,000 worth of US dollars, and she was like picking a few clothes, and then eventually said, okay, this is how I'm going to pay you cash. So the customer service counted for 2 hours, and eventually she just left. I don't know if you want to call that a revenge, but I think the message is they are expecting some great service. So the last case that I want to show today is about loss in translation. So this is a common issue. So when you tap into the culture doesn't always mean it's the right thing to do. So a very famous sports brand in China wanted to launch a new collection, okay, that tapped into the Chinese New Year season. So what they did is they picked on two very popular words. One is fa. Fa means prosperity. Fu means good fortune. Wow, perfect. Let's print them on our shoes. What they don't know is when you put the two words together, guess what it means? It means getting fat. Okay? So now, here are some of the things. Post-translations, to avoid, and there are many things, personalizations. You will have this deck, so I'm going to let you read about this, okay? So the media landscape, I couldn't leave this presentation without talking about media landscape. Media landscape in itself is a own universe. You will not find Chinese audience on MENA, Google, Amazon, all of that. You will find them, okay, in these platforms. WeChat, Douyin, Xiaohongshu, Huawei, even Huawei isn't just a mobile. They have an entire marketing suite of solutions, e-commerce platform and OTA platforms. And also to unlock customers, basically you need to go through their consumer journey. And every single marketing platforms, will have their own consumer journey for you to tap into. And here's some of the example. From Baidu, you go through awareness, intentions. And for Xiaohongshu is essentially a seeding platform, where they want brand to go through awareness, seeding, and further seeding until they act and share. Even Huawei, Huawei is all about exposure, the content environment, and also the search and the experience zone. So here's an example, okay, of what Huawei did in this region. It's basically a joint partnership with Qatar Tourism. They identified strategic partnership where Qatar Tourism truly leverage, everything that Huawei can offer. And by that, I mean using Huawei offline and digital expertise as well as the ecosystem to position the Qatar Tourism properly. Okay, and this campaign even involved PR and leveraging Huawei signature store in China to truly engage and deeply engage the Chinese audiences. Now, you need to become visible in Chinese platform in order for your brand to become desirable. The opportunity is huge. There's one thing that I want to highlight here is there are 3 airlines in China who are going to bring in more people to this region. So it's time, for you to act. So the border to cross isn't geographic, it's really about cultural. So the last tips I want to leave you is these 4. Start building your presence on Chinese platforms and be where the Chinese audiences are and use cultural intelligence as your competitive edge. When you learn about their insights, equally, they will also want to learn about the MENA insights. And invite Chinese audiences, as I said, don't, not just to visit, but to belong. And lastly, partner with people, okay? So I worked in China for many years. Each of my clients, will have a range of agency because the ecosystem is just simply too huge. So you need multiple experts, to help you truly create your integrated marketing model. All right, thank you very much.
Vast.
With that, we
Dynamic.
are launching, okay, a global knowledge hub to help you learn about the China media. Because the last 2 times when I came here, I feel that we need to do a little more education. So what we did is we're going to put all these introduction of Chinese platform into this, into an online version, for you to access anytime.
Dynamic and powerful. China's media landscape is as expansive as its beauty. Innovation drives us, strategy guides us, future defines us. Are you ready to connect? Eternity X Global Knowledge Hub, place for insights, inspiration, and innovations. Reach Chinese audience beyond borders. Engage, ignite, achieve new heights. Eternity X Global Knowledge Hub, your gateway to China, your partner for growth.
All right. Feel free to take a photo of this. So you can get access to our global knowledge hubs, where we introduce WeChat, Xiaohongshu, Huawei ecosystem, and you can also download a report for my presentation today. All right, thank you, everybody.
Well, that was one of the most informative and insightful keynotes we've had in a long time. Let's give it up for Derek once again. I had a chance to speak to Derek for about 5 minutes before we started, and I can tell you there's a lot more insights where that came from. So feel free to catch him and the Eternity X team after the event once we are done. Next up, we have a panel on harnessing advanced analytics through multi-touch attribution to maximize marketing ROI. This panel is brought to you by Fusion 5, so here's a short video about them. It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage an incredible set of panelists, including Alka Winter, Vice President, Destination Marketing and Communications, Ras Al Khaimah Tourism Development Authority, RACTA. Wonderful. We have them up on screen. Please take your seats next to your photographs. Excellent. Tina Shikhani Nadar, Head of Digital Marketing, Media and E-Commerce, Unilever. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. Saurav Day, Head of Digital, Vice President of Growth for Vigo. Matt Nelson, Senior Director, Marketing Performance at Miral Destinations. And our moderator, Natalie Pinella, Head of Digital in Fusion 5. Natalie, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to see you all, like a lot of friendly face and a beautiful panel with me today. It's the first one of this year, and I know now you know pretty much everything about China. My idea today is to bring into life about how we do measurement and how we can get a better measurement in our campaign. We are flooded by a lot of numbers and metrics and tons of dashboards, and sometimes it's hard to navigate through those numbers. It's hard to find the right models to understand whether a vanity metric is still working or we are shifting to something that is more related to business ROI and performance. And here with my guest, we can today discover and go through these topics. So let me start with our very first question. I'll ask Tina first. Ready?
Why am I not surprised? Okay, I've been told to keep the mic like this so that you can all hear me.
So we want to first understand, like, how is data being changing as of today, and how can we provide better personalized solution? Based on your experience in FMCG and CPG, how you guys are doing that though?
Well, my clear understanding is whoever does not use data to drive their business is living in 1942. So basically, data is key to everything that we do. It's evolving, and it's evolving very fast. I think we've heard it today that if you want to target the Chinese market, then you need to talk to them directly through understanding them further. So that goes the same for every single brand that we do. If we don't understand through data where is our consumers, what they're doing, what they're going through, it will be very difficult for us to actually resonate with everything that we're trying to do as brands. With Unilever, we've done it so many times in so many cases. I think I remember one that I think everybody knows Dove here as a brand. So we've used data to personalize targeting specific campaigns to specific audiences. I remember that campaign that was called Detox Your Feed. It was talking about social media and about how sometimes you get hammered by a lot of toxic and standards of beauty that are not real, that really push especially the younger generation to look at beauty in a completely different way. I know my 6-year-old keeps telling me that she looks much better if she has makeup on, and she's 6. So doesn't help that her mom works like this with a lot of makeup, but we get subjected to a lot of things, and I think we use data, and we've realized that 8 out of 10 girls actually get really targeted and really get distorted with such toxic information. So what we've done with the campaign is we've utilized data, we've utilized our social listening, data from the platforms themselves, to really target very specific messaging, very personalized messaging based on the scrolling and on the habit of consumption that these people are doing, with very targeted messaging to telling them what to unfollow and what to follow in order for them to have more positive voices around them rather than negative one. And we couldn't have done this had we not combined our effort with the platform themselves, with a lot of tech that is available in the market that can help you really target and personalize messaging to these audiences. So this is one example I remember. It resonated to me because I'm living it right now. But other than that, there's plenty of examples, whether it's us, whether it's competition, whether it's not necessarily FMCG, but a lot of people are using data to really target a specific audience, talk to them, so that you actually make sense and not be very general in terms of communication.
Absolutely. How that does apply into the tourism and destination industry, Alka, based on your experience?
I mean, when we look at advanced analytics, it definitely applies to our industry, which is tourism related and bringing visitors to a destination. And I have to say, even though, you know, AI came out 2 years ago, the conversation, and last year, and not so much this year, but it is so important. Machine learning and AI is involved in everything we do, from audience segmentation to targeting as well. When we look at targeting and retargeting, we have a program called Outcomes that's through our media strategy agency, which optimizes our campaigns continuously through AI. It guarantees prices even on biddable media. And it not only stops there, we look at dynamic creative optimization, we look at search patterns. So for us in the tourism industry, as we market to over 20 countries to come into the destination, we look at what point are you inspired and start looking for a holiday destination, and what is that gap of searches to bookings. And what we find across the 15 markets, they vary from 1 month, like India will search, be inspired, search, book within a month, to 3 or 4 months, which are our CIS countries in Russia. So it plays a huge role in what we do. And of course, I know the topic's going to be attribution. And whether there is relevancy in last click attribution. And this is what we're all grappling with. Is it first? Is it linear? Is it time decay? Across the board, how do you attribute credit to attribution, and what's driving your media spend?
But before we get into that, I think we need to do just a step back and understand the role of vanity metrics. Now, vanity metrics is something that everybody is playing around, and I'm sure in this room, everybody still keeps planning and buying for planning metrics. But where do we stand, sort of, in your opinion, by being a OTA and travel positioning?
I think all the metrics are important for the business. So it's definitely important to keep tracking all the metrics. And then the metrics that makes more sense for me as a growth and performance marketing department might not make that much of sense for a department like product or commercial, right? So from that aspect, I think it's important for each and every department to identify what is the KPI metrics that they would like to follow. To give an example, like I head the performance marketing department at Vigo. And definitely, like Anup spoke about the CFO and CMO example. So we definitely struggle to get the marketing budgets, right? So we have to drive our performances towards the main KPI, which is ROI. However, when we run campaigns, we see that there are certain campaigns for which you are probably not making, ROI profitability. So what we thought about is to look at other metrics like search session rate or click session rate, because it not only impacts you as a department. Like you might be driving the most quality traffic to the website, but you do not have the content to support that customer's need. So if I look at a particular campaign which is probably ROI negative, but in terms of search session rate and click session rate, it is beyond 90%, then it is not a problem from our side, it is problem from probably a product or a content or a commercial side which we need to look at. So what I'm trying to say here is it is always important to keep looking at all the metrics and then identify which metrics matters to which department.
Yeah, of course.
I will step in here to add to what you said. I think for us, the most important part is the objective. So we need to define what we're trying to do and what we're looking for. So sometimes everybody looks at click-through, engagement. Those are like the usual metrics that everybody looks at. But to be very honest with you, sometimes you're not looking for a click-through or you're looking for something more deeper. It depends on what the campaign is required to do. And based on that, you define the objectives. And you're 100% right. It does vary between each department and what they're looking for and what they're searching.
And I feel sometimes there is also a silos in terms of objectives and how we look at objectives. Like there might be the person, the department fully biased on branding by self, and the one that is exclusively looking at the performance. So my question to Matt is, how can we put together a framework that is taking into account the objectives, taking into account vanity metrics and performance and business metrics, and actively attributed all the actions that we do in the marketing journey?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, look, I think one of even just the title of this panel made me kind of feel like it was back in like 2009, right? We've been down this road before with this multi-touch attribution story, and I think what we were sold back then was, you can see everything and attribute value to it. And the reality was, once sort of the privacy-focused changes came in and GDPR and other changes, that kind of went away. And we're back where now we have these sets of walled gardens we have to deal with. I mean, I remember doing full data exports from Google Analytics and cookie matching to Meta, to Facebook. And that's a thing of the past, right? That's not going to happen. So having a holistic, let's call it a stack or a framework where you have your platform metrics, which are still really important. Last touch attribution is still really important to understand what's happening in the platform, and let's call those vanity metrics for argument's sake. But then to supplement it with things like media mix modeling and brand studies and business outcomes. Ultimately, it's not going to be a single number on a page anymore. It's a set of indicators that can help kind of guide what we're doing. And I would love it to be a single number on a page. It would make our jobs a lot easier. But it's not, and it's not going to be ever again. I don't think it's going to be more of a weather forecast than a report card.
So there is now this trend about talking about triangulation, where it's not only one measurement framework, but is applying different ones. There is MMM, there is still last click attribution who wants to do it, MTA, and obviously incrementality test. Has everyone had any experience to put it together, and how do you navigate within this and in the organization itself as marketeers?
Great. And just to backtrack a bit as well, when we're talking about the vanity metrics, whether it's ROAS or impressions reach, CTR, VTR, by themselves, they are a bit flimsy. I think as marketers, we have a twofold role. We have to look at the business objectives of the enterprise, whether that's profitability, most likely it is. EBITDA, in my industry, is driving overnight visitation. So I need visitors to stay in my destination. And working with WeGo, we help achieve that, as well as driving length of stay. So with that combined with the marketing objectives is key for us. And I think this really does underscore what we've been talking about, the sometimes adversarial relationship we have with finance, who speak a different language. And it tends to become a zero-sum game. So I think they need to see the long-term potential of what we do from a marketing perspective.
Okay. And how do you measure real-time performance, Tina, in your day-to-day job?
To be very honest with you, I wish we had the real-time measurement that the US has, and China, let me put it that way, so that we don't miss the other side of the world. We do have some real-time measurement. They're not as advanced as anywhere else in the world, to be very honest with you. I know I literally just came back from the US, where I saw our performance team actually doing something called rapid ROI. Rapid ROI is actually a system where you utilize data. You pick up several points of data throughout the funnel or throughout the journey that you're actually targeting the consumer. And that system or that piece of tech calculates an immediate ROI if your campaign is actually delivering or is expected to deliver to the KPI that you've set this campaign to deliver, even over-deliver it. It gives you metric on if your content is resonating, if there's an issue with your channel mix, your investment level on each of the levels of the funnel. And the good thing about it is it's real time. So basically you see it on the spot, and there's a specified team, we call performance team in Unilever, that actually does nothing. Except watch, does nothing except watch. They actually do something. They don't do anything except watch these metrics and really optimize real time. The good news about it is they have full autonomy to flip anything in the funnel or in the campaign without going back to anyone. They don't go back to the brand team, they don't go back to the media team, they just look at the data. They have a budget and they can manipulate the budget and play to maximize all the ROI all the way to the end. They even have authority to flip content. So basically we have a system and a content team that actually does content at scale. We call it a content supply chain. Just like we produce product at scale, we produce content at scale as well. So they are there to also optimize the content. So without the real time optimization that we do, and based on these metric that we track real time, we will not be able to maximize that ROI. Unfortunately, and please don't hate me for the suppliers that are sitting here in the room, we don't have it that developed in this region. It is there in some form or another way, and pieces of the funnel that we track. Some of them are quite advanced where you get real time. Some suppliers, some platforms, even e-commerce platform can actually give you real time measurement, but they don't measure every element. So the measurement will be probably on your click-throughs, on your basic media metrics. They don't talk content. And the one that actually measure content, they're not real time. They actually give you that measurement afterwards. They either are pre-campaign through AI, where they tell you if potentially that content will resonate, or post-campaign based on the metric they model. They're not real time. Once we get to the real-time content, including media metrics, I think we will be optimizing every single part of a campaign.
So you think it's a matter of independence of the team? Because I guess that the team in US is quite independent, right?
But the tools are even more important. Today, if you don't have the tools, so we don't have rapid ROI in this region. Unfortunately, they have not set up shop. I'm trying to push them to do so.
It's the same line of approval.
Yes, but the tech, if the tech is not available, you can have 20,000 people doing it if they don't have tech to support them in order for them to actually do that real-time tracking and optimization. They won't be able. Today, we don't have an end-to-end tracking of the campaign from start till end. There are elements of it that are real-time, elements of it that are not real-time. Having it all real-time will actually give you a much better ROI and much faster, and you can actually change direction on the spot. We don't do this regularly in this part of the world.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of expertise and obviously being holistic as well, because the supply chain is quite fragmented here and must be fixed. I want to hear from Matt or Saurav about your point of view on this one, on the real-time performance.
Yeah, I mean, it was the comment around the customer journey, right? The fact that people take time to look, to book, travel, and I think real time is really important today. Like, as in, you know, when you're looking at the performance of your media today, real time and platform metrics are really, really important. But in 6 weeks' time, they don't matter, right? It's the business outcomes that matter. So I think having an understanding of when platform metrics matter. For example, in our reporting structure, platform metrics and media metrics wouldn't go past my team. That's it. They would never ever get reported past my team. They are exclusively for the media team to optimize media. Ultimately, what the business is interested in is business outcomes.
Yeah.
So to have an understanding of what's meaningful today versus next week versus in 6 months helps us plot out our kind of hierarchy of metrics and the importance of those. So yes, real time's super important, but as soon as today's finished, we don't care about those metrics. They're done. It's on to the next.
It's like a butterfly. Saurabh, your point of view on this one?
I think I would like to agree to what you just said. Like we we do have some sort of mechanism similar to rapid ROI that you mentioned. But having said that, this is something that was probably not possible 6 months or a year back without the help of AI. Because if you have to do it on a manual basis, it would need around 10,000 to 20,000 people to look at all the campaigns and optimize it on the go based on the real-time data. But with the help of AI, can we do more with less is one of the classic examples that we take care on this particular thing.
And how do you think these affect the consumer behavior in that case? How is that connected, Tina, in your case, or maybe Alka in this case? Yeah.
Can you repeat the
Yeah,
question?
in terms of consumer behavior, like that is continuously changing, and how at the moment are you measuring and taking the right measures to tackle after the consumer behavior that is changing at the moment?
I mean, it is a challenge for us. I'll just put it bluntly. There is, the messy middle. No longer is it a nice, clean flow through from awareness to consideration to purchase. There's so many different touch points. So with our media strategy team, we're constantly looking at that and looking at tools of optimization using AI. What can we do from a creative standpoint? I love what you said, that creating content at scale, and it's so applicable because you have such various segments and audiences who need different things. No longer, especially in tourism, it's not one product. It's an entire destination with multiple touch points. So if you are somebody who enjoys hiking, you're from the Nordics, and I want you to come to Ras Al Khaimah, to Jebel Jais, I won't be sending you, food images of our restaurants. I'll send you hiking trails and things like of that nature. So it's constant analysis, and I have to say, because of machine learning and AI, we're able to do it at speed. We're just not there yet to do it at scale.
Have you used any agentic AI for that?
I want to. It's really gone beyond the chat box to reasoners to agentic AI. If you look at Perplexity, it's incredible. They just announced that you can make hotel bookings directly on Perplexity. So no longer, and this will have implications for OTAs as well, I'm sure, that you can search and book directly. It won't divert you to another website. This is incredible. This is one click less travel, which is immense. One of the things we're looking at is, when I look at my audience profiles, and Matt and I, I'm sure we do our personas and our segmentation, it's pretty static. I can be looking at couples in the UK. I give the ages of what I'm looking for, the education level, the income. That's about it. And then I map out my campaign. If I were to feed all that data into an AI model, and with all the data that's around, I have something that's agentic, meaning that it's prescriptive, it's intuitive, it's goal setting, and I can ask it, so as a couple in the UK, how many times this year do you think you'll travel? Is it expensive for you to travel abroad this year? What do you think of the Middle East? Have you been to the UAE? Have you heard of Ras Al Khaimah? I can get real-time responses that would feed into my campaigns, which I think would be a game changer. Agentic AI in that sense is being used in a lot of applications, not yet in tourism, but we would love to be at the forefront of it.
Absolutely. What about the shifting consumer behavior for you? What do you see in the e-commerce and trading?
Consumers are shifting drastically and very fast. We look at things now, you're right, if I look at media and how we book them, we book age 18 to 25 female who has affinity to beauty. And that gives you probably 7 million people in this region that have this affinity. Today when we're looking at, we're looking more at communities.
at communities based on either passion points. You said something about hiking. Today, when you're targeting people who are hiking, when you're talking their language, when you're embedding yourself within their community and their culture, you become part of that community, part of that culture, and it will be easier for you to understand what their likes, what they're looking for, and how to talk to them. Today, our biggest struggle as brands is how can we make our brands live in a community without it showing up as an advertising? Can I be part of this community seamlessly and people feel that we're on time? I'm gonna wrap it up.
It's good in
5 minutes. That's an analog way of saying, Tina, be
we
quiet.
haven't seen him for him,
Anyways.
But yeah.
Anyways, so how can you embed yourself in a culture? How can you understand them and understand what they're seeing, what they're thinking, what they want, without coming across as someone who just wants to sell them a product? And you can only do that by being part of that community and by making your brand really clear on what it stands for, what it's looking for, who are the consumer it's targeting, and in depth, not a segment of an 18 to 24 female. What do they like? Where do they sit? How do they breathe? How do they walk? What do they look around them? And once you know that and you put your brand in it and you start talking this language as a brand, you get embedded in that community. So there are a lot of behavior changes. We are picking them up every day. I'm not going to give you a list of them. You can call ChatGPT and he will give you 25 consumer behavior changes. But I can tell you that if you're not living them, if you don't understand them, and if you're not a person who understands how to embed yourself, then very soon you're going to be out of these communities.
I think this is our role, navigating through data, navigating through consumer behavior, and by flooding of so much information, choosing the right track for us. Well, thank you all for being here, and thank you guys for listening. It's been a pleasure. Picture.
Great panel. Check. Love that. Great insights. With that, we now move to the second panel of the day. But before we continue, let me remind you that we have only one more panel after this one. And as they say, sometimes we leave the best for the last. Having said that, we have a great second panel discussion that will dive into contextual advertising, making marketing actually meaningful for consumers. This panel is brought to you by CTAG. Here's a short video about them.
Dare to engage beyond boundaries. Break free from intrusive internet labels and stereotypes. And embrace the future of privacy-driven audience connection. Discover what truly sparks people's passions. Introducing CTAG's Contextual Audience. Connect through shared interests and embark on a journey where meaningful connections thrive. It's not just about reaching your audience. It's about reaching them in the right place at the right time with the right mindset. Explore the unexplored. Audiences reimagined. It's time to claim the privacy-first future.
Wonderful. Let's put our hands together for Sherry Mansoor, Managing Director, MENA at CTAG. I promised Sherry that I would clap too when she came on stage. Hussein Al-Nabi, Executive Director, Marketing and Digital Alat. Abdul Nabi Aladdin, Regional Director, Digital and Partnerships, MENA. Excellent. We need to find our seat right under our faces, I've been told. Yasmin Al-Turk, Advanced DOH and Digital Supply Lead at Group M MENA. And none other than our moderator for the day, Nader Bitar, Director of Digital Solutions at SRMG. Nader, over to you.
Great. So good morning, everyone. We're going to make it a bit fun today, all right? Just to chill, although the room is super cold, by the way.
Freezing.
It's super cool. It's freezing. Super excited. Welcome, panelists. Contextual advertising. We're definitely making marketing meaningful right after this session. We're going to do it a bit different. We're going to have key takeaways from the session. We have an amazing background of panelists from brands, agencies, and tech. These are the doers, the makers. Contextual advertising has been around for years, actually since the 20th century. Believe it or not, a fun fact, contextual advertising has been very popular during the print days, where advertisers and brands deliberately and intentionally placed ads next to relevant content back in newspapers and magazines. Fast forward to this era, where it's super challenging and super activated by AI technology. We're going to dwell into the details. We're going to dwell into the challenges. We're going to dwell into the opportunities. And it's a beautiful concept, and we're going to go into details. So allow me first to start with Abdelnabi from the agency back. We were debating, by the way, who starts, all right? But I want to take the sequence to start with the agencies, because agencies activate, agencies facilitate. And I want to ensure to get the background. So Abdelnabi, when it comes to brand relevance, or when we talk about data restrictions and privacy, the narrative or the conversation when it comes to contextual, how does that implicate or facilitate your plans, your clients' conversations, your strategies? Would love to know your input on this.
First, this is what you get when you arrive late. Great question, but let me take a very small step back. When Apple launched iOS 14, they announced that they lost 30% of the data of the users who used to track their behavior on the apps. So moving forward, 2023, end of the year, when Google announced the sunset of cookies. Basically, this industry needed that kind of shake to move fast, to find the new solutions. As you rightfully said, contextual advertising was there since ages.
100%.
But I want to echo what Tina has said earlier. We were depending a lot on targeting people with affinities, depending on cookies. However, is this right? No. Were we doing it? Yes. So we always used to put in our strategies targeting the right people in the right placement with the right messages. It was nice on slides, but many brands used to go back to the days of targeting mass audiences, one message, one TVC across TV, print, and as well as digital.
And how much did it take to actually do this shift or this convincing stage? Did it require, is it a problem of talent? Is it a problem of know-how? Is it adoption? What is it?
I think people get used to it.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way how to can target people. It's easy planning, I would say. Innovative, driving results at the end of the day in terms of brand health as well as direct ROI. However, 2024, everyone had to move fast, find an alternative solutions, because other than that, all your high-value audiences had to be put on the side and go back to the targeting male, female, 18 to 44. So the easiest way, I would say, the simplest way, but the most robust way, what would be contextual advertising. Okay. However, that's the role of AI. That's the role of a new technology's robust algorithm. It's not anymore putting your banner, your 300 by 250, on a website, on a news website, and say, yes, this person is, we are targeting people in the right mindset. Using multiple algorithms to identify different personas, map it to your actual high-value audiences, and that's how you start. And it was no surprise for everyone, I guess. End of the year 2024, cookies are here to stay. However, finally, we have solutions. Brands are used now to do something different than what they have been doing. Also, agencies had to think innovatively, removing the hat of social, removing the hat of open exchange, and start looking literally on what would drive ROI for brands.
100%. The association with content is super important. Before we go to the tech, basically, aspect, Yasmin, from a brand safety or brand suitability perspective, what are the industry, on top of your mind, you're in the industry challenges that you're facing nowadays, and especially that when it's associated with different content environments? Would love to know your perspective on that.
These are the keywords, right? Brand safety and brand suitability. It's always, the first thing that comes to mind, and it's definitely part of our strategies as agencies and all of our strategies. And really, we need to find ways that we protect our brands and their integrity, their values to each and every brand, because it's very different from brand to brand, from campaign to campaign, while still maintaining reach, relevancy, performance, and finding that sweet spot. Because we went through a phase, and really the challenge was we were overprotecting at one point. This is one of the challenges, there's several, but for this discussion now, we were overprotecting. We were so worried about appearing against content, we were blocking almost everything. We were blocking things that were relevant to our brands.
Which I'm sure that impacted reach and scale.
Of course, and the scale was becoming smaller
100%.
and smaller. So we needed to find where that sweet spot is between over-blocking and under-blocking to ensure that we're protecting our brands. We had, when COVID, for example, it was like block everything related to COVID. Well, you're in entertainment. You're in your entertainment sites. It could just say, COVID regulations. Just a reminder, COVID regulations. We blocked that entire site. It's not brand safe anymore. It didn't make sense, Or it could be whatever it may be. But anyway, and then also in brand suitability as well. It's really about defining what is actually brand suitable for each and every client. And again, it could be different for every campaign. I think right now we're doing a one-size-fits-all, and this isn't the right approach, What's relevant and what's suitable, and identifying from a brand's perspective what really is their values, what do they find, what do they want to maintain, what perception do they want to maintain, and for us to support them. And we have so many tools. Agencies and Group M, for example, we have our excellency, playbook. We work on specific inclusion lists by clients. We work on an SPO strategy where we have support from our SSPs to also ensure we're filtering out a lot of that.
Because I was going to ask, who sets those benchmarks with this standardization? Is it from experience based on your clients, or is it? Who sets the standards? You mentioned SSPs involvement. You mentioned publishers, probably, or tech, or clients' activations, but who sets those standards?
I think, ultimately, the most important thing is that the brand has to define what they perceive as what's suitable with themselves.
All right, okay.
This is it starts with them defining that. We, of course, support them. We are there to support, and we will give our recommendations, that's for sure. But internally, because even internally from a brand, they could have different perspectives.
100%, yeah.
So it has to be defined from their end, and then we work as an agency to ensure that we're protecting them, and of course with our partners, our tech partners, our ad verification partners, to ensure that it's an industry-wide thing that we're working on all together collaboratively.
Perfect. This is great, especially the marketeers in the room. We have to really understand the content environment and the experience in your campaigns have so many layers in between that actually contribute to privacy, contribute to brand safety, and the big question is who sets those regulations? So great,
Sorry, I just want to say also the sentiment as well.
100%,
Like this
100%.
is all about contextual, and this is so important. We heard it in the previous panel. Hiking. You don't want to show them something that's not relevant. We see ads all the time. We know how many ads we're exposed to across all different channels. And the only way that it will actually resonate with the users, including ourselves as users, if we take ourselves out of the media world for a minute, what resonates with us is what we're actively consuming. And that's where contextual really comes in. Because
100%.
That's where the impact happens, and
Absolutely.
it moves away from the media metrics that, again, we've seen in the previous panel.
Agreed, and especially in a rapidly evolving industry, we're stuck in between how we navigate into this complex world. And is it AI? Is it tech? Is it customer experiences? We don't know, actually. So we can define it and have a starting point with technology. And I want to ask Sherry here, in terms of your perspective and CTAC's perspective, how do you visualize or basically position contextual AI, and what advice would you give marketeers in this room and publishers and tech and agencies on the usage for performance optimization, campaign reporting? What value would you give for contextual AI?
Technically, there's a lot of things that we need to differentiate. First, contextual is essential. It's here. It's gonna stay, right? Second, tapping into a word that is looking, for example, for mindset, specific mindsets. Now users are actually looking for a privacy solution. Tapping into the right mindset at the right placement at the right time is important, right? And this is where contextual AI is there, right? Understanding the mindset, which is important. Tapping into what I'm interested now at that specific minute, at that specific time, in real time. That's number one. Going back to brand suitability, is it suitable, the brand, the content? Is it something that I want to really look into? That's important. For an advice, I believe that marketeers nowadays, they need to actually jump the boat. They can't just stay backwards or relying on behavioral targeting. It's the past 30 days cookies, right? Or based on demographics. They need to tap into the right interest. And this is where we position ourselves. We are a contextual AI, where we understand everything that's happening on a content level. We look at what the brand wants, and we blend the advertisement of that specific marketeer within the content that is present there.
Okay, and when you talk about that aspect of AI, from a CTAC perspective, what's the value would you basically support media activators when it comes to agencies on the panel, when it comes to the value that you would give from brand suitability?
There's a lot of things when it comes to brand suitability, because sometimes the brands would come and say, you know what, I want to block the word war, right?
Yeah.
On a context level, war with CTAG might be in a movie, War of Word, well, for example.
Good luck convincing those two.
So this is where we play. This is where context plays a big role, and sentiment, right? With the AI of CTAG, Liz, it analyzes everything, right? I might be blocked from different measurement tools, right? That flagging, you know what, non-brand suitable. But at the end of the day, if you really look at the article on the URL and what is being served and how we can serve that, this is where you can look at the AI behind it, not just on the traditional way of targeting, which is
Why are you pointing at him?
Because he's always on my left. He's always on my left side, and he's on my right, and I'm hammered between two agencies. And I wanted to sit next to a client.
No, don't worry.
Maybe
We have his share. We have Sen's share. Don't worry.
But technically, yeah, looking at the context, looking at how you analyze and understand the article, and this is where we merge the brand suitability with the brand safety aspect, right? I might be reading an article relating to gold prices going high, but at the end of the day, if you look at the content and if you look at specific subject inside that content, it goes about, you know what, the war that's happening in Russia and Ukraine, for example, the spike is there. Is it brand suitable? It might be for the brand, yeah, you know what, I want to be on the business sector, but for us as an AI, the sentiment is negative, and this is where it gets blocked from our side.
I want to add to Sherry's and Yasmin's points. In 2020, during the days of COVID, let's say on a news website, definitely, when you look at the benchmarks coming from any ad verification platform or even from the global techs, news would be immediately eliminated from your targeting. But an antiseptic detergent, the only platform or article they can appear on during the COVID would be a COVID article. So if you follow what the platforms or the benchmarks, between parentheses, gives, so no single ad impression will be served for an antiseptic detergent brand. That's why the brand has to set its own benchmarks, not the platform would be setting its own benchmarks. For example, I don't understand how we still talks about benchmarks of brand safety of 70, 90, 50%, 60%. This number doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
The platform has to, yes, we have our typical exclusion list, which goes with no say. But a brand appearing within a relevant content, this is what matters. Yes, it has to be a brand safe content, not on a pirated website, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, you set your own benchmark. Don't allow
You
the
as a brand, you said.
absolutely,
Yeah.
as the brand, not the market or the tech or
100%.
or other brands to set your own benchmark.
Absolutely. So this is where we move to the brand. Hussein, definitely to build up on Abdelnabi's point, you know, when it comes, we're exposed to a new generation of vocals. People boycott whenever they see a gap in brands' brand values. And brands are all moving towards content production, content creation, storytelling. When you fall short on brand values, what's the best way to associate your brand values with the content you produce to avoid the likes of this new generation that are very vocal in boycotting brands? From an ads perspective, how is that possible?
Thank you. First of all, I'm shivering because I'm freezing.
Yeah,
This room is like, these guys heated up already. So, to answer your question, Nader, I think brands should not fall short of their brand values. What I mean by that is that if you as a brand would have values, don't just go with buzzword that you want to just like promote out there. You really need to build brand values that would resonate with the people.
Absolutely.
That is number one. And number two, I think you should come as well with how do you really reflect your brand values internally before externally. So I think it just, you've heard it, like, well, the brand would reflect positively if the internal processes and the employees' interaction, all of that is really positive. It really reflects to the
100%.
external side. So I think this is number one. You need to assess your brand values. You need to make sure that you have authenticity in delivering them. How do you really position that into contextual advertising as well? I think it just like the team here has mentioned, where do you fit them? Where do you place that? Where do you make sure that relevancy is important? There's so many examples of brands that has, maybe with Alat we're just starting, so, and we're not your typical brand because we're B2B currently, and into manufacturing, but when you come to different brands that really targets consumers, for example, Dove, it was mentioned, Tina was mentioning Dove as well. Dove really focuses on body positivity.
100%.
And this is how they place their ads as well, in the right platform, at the right place. They don't go somewhere else where it contradicts their values. So you can't actually go somewhere that contradicts your value, because that is when your audience might lose trust.
100%.
And you've mentioned also the generations. You really need to look into the generations. Generation X, millennials, are totally different than Generation Z.
Absolutely.
The way that they look into things. By the way, Gen Z are I would say they're the most difficult generation that you should target, because they lose trust easily. And they really look for a brand that they can become loyal to as well. Exactly. And this is how they see your ads as well. If I was mentioning, I think 2 days ago, I was mentioning that I was having a discussion with a friend, and he's looking into the data that they collect out of all of their outlets, and how do they utilize AI to make sure that they make it more relevant to the audience that taps into their online stores or physical stores. And one thing that he mentioned is that imagine that a customer is so loyal to you that they buy all of your products, go to all of your stores, and they really have that kind of like attachment to your brand, and then you go to one of their stores and they don't even recognize who you are. It's kind of a reflection, right? Like this is a disappointment. That could actually like friction that kind of relationship. So data is very important, as mentioned in here as well, and I think it's the values need to be really real and placed in the right place and the right platform to make the relevancy as well, to make sure that those different generations would actually like have a better trust.
100%. And this, you mentioned generations and the personas of millennials and Gen Zs and Gen X. How do you make hyper-personalization a reality from a brand's perspective? And especially, I think we would need some assistance from the agencies on that front. Yeah. How do you position audiences based on your storytelling initiatives?
Sherry mentioned something about the demographics and the behavior. I think it's very important that, so the traditional way that we used to segment our audience was based on demographics, right?
Yeah.
Age, location, gender, and all of that. I think it's a bit stereotypical right now. It's very traditional. The most important thing, I think we're shifting now into the behavior side. Just look into the behavior of your audience and the users as well, and the different platforms and the different places where you're attracting them. This is very important. This is where the difference between the cookies and the first-party data. I think it's important to look into the first-party data now more than cookies, because they're willingly being given, because I want to see my preferences based on the information that I consented to give you right now, whether through a purchase or a sign-up to an application or a use on an application. So I think these are the elements that brands should look into to personalize and customize the way that they deliver, because this is the really important way that I want to see my brand approaching me. So it is very important to look into that. And again, there's so many brands that are using the behavior customization or personalization. Spotify, Netflix, a lot of those different platforms that gives you based on your behavior. They don't give it to the demographics. I'm a Generation X. I love TikTok. I really love TikTok, and TikTok was placed or just kind of positioned somehow, I don't know, in China, Douyin as well, was really fixed into Generation Z when it first started. But if you think that TikTok does not really resonate with Generation X, millennials, then you're wrong. Because
Absolutely.
you need to look into the behavior of people, not their demographics.
100%. There are many triggers as well when in each platform, each tech, each content creator. Those triggers basically is a building block to this, the advancements of contextual. And I think when it comes to an agency, how do you see the adoption of how brands classify audiences and generations? Is that something that you facilitated for brands, or is it the use of tech? Give us the agency perspective.
I would say we have reached to a situation or to an era where we started to talk clean rooms with our clients. We started to use advanced solutions to fuse the data of clients with other second and third party syndicated data, or even online data, be it device IDs or. So I feel 2025 is the year where we will see the new ways of segmentation in this region. Globally, we have been using it. The retail data of Walmart in the States, the MasterCard data which is available in, be it in APAC, Australia, or even in the States. But our market was always classified as a market with no data. Today, we started from nowhere, I would say, to a place in almost no time, like in a year or 18 months, we started to have clean rooms. We started to have second-party data, or what we call a second-party data, to segment audiences, find a way how to use DCO, for example, or what used to be called DCO back then on a display, to develop that one-to-one communication with the consumers, but using all the methodologies or the parameters which we have been discussing earlier, right place, right content, brand suitable, etc. But that kind of connection, it's there now. And we are extremely excited to see the brands, even the CPGs of the world, which used to be the brand targeting male, female, 18 to 44 on TV, and that's the target audience. We started to talk about different audiences, high-value audiences of these even CPG brands. It's not only your travel or tech or telco. Now it's everyone looking at that. And they are seeing the results. If they were not seeing the results, they won't do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yasmin, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, that was exactly, I think 2025 is definitely the year that this is going to transform in MENA. I just would like to add only a small point, is that we also need to really educate our teams more and more, because the connection, that's what's missing currently. We have access to this new technology that's suddenly come about so quickly. It's emerged so quickly in our region. But really taking a step back and understanding it and how we can all bring it together, that's key for us this year.
Absolutely, and I would want to add, it's not only about the agency's education, or it's the whole ecosystem. Publishers contribute to a very important factor on that. Social platforms, tech, brands, and this is where, and I think in 2025 we're at a stage, the industry has evolved. We're in good shape. We're in definitely good shape. So as a key takeaway, I would want to ask each one of you quickly in 2 words, how How do you see the advertising ecosystem meaningful? How do you see the advertising industry in 2 words, in your views, starting with Hussein?
It's too difficult to put them in 2 words.
2 sentences.
2 sentences. So I think, see, we've mentioned contextual advertising, and then we mentioned the technology as well. Now this is the age of AI, right? And I would refer to what Derek mentioned here about the China market. I think it's not only about the China market, it's about the global market, because there are different nuances in different regions. The behavioral aspects of each audience is different. The way they consume content is totally different. I think with AI, merging it with the way that you look into the behavior. So think about it, psychology and technology. Merge them together.
These are 2 words, great.
Yeah,
There you go.
these
Done.
are 2 words.
Thank you very much.
Merge them together and you got it right.
Perfect. Yasmin?
Mine will always be metrics to meaning, 3 words, but I still think that's what it is. Always moving beyond metrics. We're looking so much at just those KPIs, as mentioned in the previous panel, and we really need to move past that.
Sherry?
Trying to do it in 2 words, which is a bit difficult.
CTAG.
No. I don't like whoever knows me.
That's 1 word.
Contextual advertising.
I don't like to sales pitch, but it's important to understand. And for me, it's like about context and creativity.
Super.
We forgot the point of creativity, right?
Yeah.
If you implement the right strategy and everything you've said, interest, technology, data measurement, all these things, and you forgot about the creative,
there's nothing. 100%.
Forget it.
100%.
Forget it. And that's where clients need to understand. No matter what the media agency is doing, if the creative is not correct, no matter what you do, because our attention span is like less than a goldfish. If
100%.
you don't, I'm sorry to say it, it's less than a 6 second, and that's psychology, right? Every day, we're passing through certain placements, ads, and everything. So I believe that creativity and the creative behind it is essential, and that's where you guys would be able to have that knowledge with the clients.
You are building a brand. You are not selling a product. At the end of the day, you have to leave the comfort zone. That's why you are literally building your brand for the future. So it's always might sound cliche, but literally we are in the most innovative industry in the world.
Absolutely.
So we need to bring back the magic to this industry.
100%. And this is where I would definitely, as an ending note, contextual advertising is no longer a supporting layer to the business. It's a fundamental layer. And brands and marketeers that will win are the ones that will use relevance without compromise. Create relevant stories, create relevant ads at the right place, at the right time, in the right environment. Thank you so much.
Hyper-personalization, like you said.
100%.
Thank you.
Thank you, this has been fun. Thank you very much. That's good, thank you.
Check. Excellent. Let us dive straight into the 3rd and final panel of this day, which is going to be great from what I hear. What a wonderful panel we just had. It took me a while to make all of these notes, but psychology and technology, metrics and meaning, context and creativity, building a brand, not selling a product. On that note, it's time to move into our final panel of the day. We have some great speakers on here as well. The panel is on shaping talent and teams in a tech-leaning landscape, and a lot of people in the previous panels have been talking about this. We've got a wonderful lineup of panelists. Join me in welcoming to the stage Ms. Mariam Farag, VP Corporate Communications at DAMAC. Perfectly okay to keep those claps going. For Ashfaq Bande, EVP and Global Head of Team Talent Acquisition at Mashrek. Wasim Derby, Head of Marketing, Communications and Training at Hyundai UAE. And Ahmed Al-Gamal, Senior Director of Marketing at Jumeirah Group. Shall we take our seats? Excellent. Ahmed right next to me. I'll start this panel by saying that the water on stage is not for decoration. So if anybody wants to drink, please go right ahead. I'm going to keep this as conversation as possible, engaging, and let's dig into the real meat in your minds. It's great to have a great set of marketers on stage, and we don't get to pick their brains very often, so I'm going to make the most of this opportunity. Let's start this panel discussion with the truth. Okay, it's getting increasingly hard to find the right talent, attract the right talent, retain the right talent. From conversations here and over the past week, one of the things that have come out time and time again is that the traditional forms of recruiting, traditional forms of hiring aren't working. Ashfaq, I'll start with you. One, do you agree with that statement? And if you do, then how can we go about building a future-ready workforce?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Anoop, and thank you, Campaign Middle East, for the opportunity, all the audience out there for your presence, and fellow panelists. It's a pleasure to be here. To answer your question, absolutely yes, I totally agree. I think the traditional hiring models are showing serious deficiencies when it comes to the current work environments. Now, these were typically built for predictability, stability, not for the pace of disruption that we are witnessing. Mm-hmm. So the roles are actually evolving much faster than your job descriptions can keep pace. Now, to answer your other question, how do you then go about building future-ready workforce? Now, unfortunately, there are no shortcuts. I wish I had and excite you all. So it does require a holistic approach. It starts with a culture, or nourishing a culture that adapts quickly to change, values diversity, inclusion, anticipates the future needs, and all that is an absolute must. Now, as leaders, we aren't only supposed to just adapt, we need to lead the way. And it requires a paradigm shift from the traditional role-based hiring to capabilities or skills-based acquisition. Now, what that means is you got to be hiring based on potential and adaptability, not simply based on, how we would traditionally look for relevance of experience or relevance of educational qualifications, so on and so forth. Now, it's also important to understand there's not enough talent out there. There are n number of studies done. I came across one recently from McKinsey, which talks about how the current demand for the digital skill set, especially in areas like AI, in areas like analytics, advanced analytics, basically exceeds almost 4 times the supply there is. So what does that tell you? You can't only rely on trying to find that talent which actually doesn't exist in the kind of volume that you need. So don't overlook your internal talent, right? So you got to be investing back into what you have. So the big question here is trying to find that balance where you endlessly try and look and buy that talent versus trying to build a talent and perhaps leveraging the talent that might exist in the wider ecosystem. Now at Mashrek, sorry.
I said that's such a holistic answer. I think it covers all the points that I wanted to talk today. We can end the panel here. Thank you very much. No, but I mean, I genuinely mean that. There's a lot to unpack there. You've talked about the need for the company to build an internal culture that's, accepting, that's, DEI friendly, it's sustainable, that has that attractability. But you've also mentioned the need to build internal potential, the need to upskill, as you said, and there's again, we will unpack each of these through the panel. Wasim, I saw you looking very contemplative while Ashfaq was talking. Would you want to add to that?
First of all, thank you for this opportunity. Yes, he wrapped it up very much. I don't have much to say around that topic anymore, but I'll go very practical. I come from automotive.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, most of my successful managers or executives came from outside the industry.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the shifts that we need to really look into, we need to stop looking at just industry-specific experience.
Right.
Until today, you open any job posting today, there's always that very disturbing statement or requirement, minimum 5 to 10 years industry experience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't seem to understand, especially our marketeers. I believe marketeers can market anything, product, service, you name it. Train us for a few weeks, 1 month, off we go. So that's number one. Number two is, as he rightly said, there's no shortcut. The talent pool out there, I'll be very honest, we're misusing the word talent. Everybody has something unique, There are two types of people. There are people who decided to develop and work on that skill set and expose it. And there are others who decided to just hide it and never work on it. Because it's the public who decides that you're talented, it's not yourself. And that's why we struggle to find these talents. For me, in terms of marketing, if you're not someone who's engaging on LinkedIn, on even other platforms, you're no longer an attractive point for that business. You can't claim you're a social media expert if you're not passionate about it from a personal perspective. So these are some of the elements that we look into. It's not just your resume. It's how you've been engaging, how you've been active across your personal platforms. You're a social media expert and you don't have your own TikTok page or Instagram page, I would doubt that you're even considering. There's a marketeer and there's a marketing employee. There's a big difference. Marketeers are passionate. With marketing, if you don't have the passion, most of your survival rate will be very low. Marketers are people who are passionate. We love what we do. That's why you find us really engaging out there. We're always attending similar seminars and being very active. Others just take it as a job. So if you just take it as a job, you really won't survive, especially in today's dynamic world. Another thing that we have looked into as well is the way we screen these resumes today. There's a lot of, unfortunately, we all like to polish our resumes. But today, you need to really question all this terminology. I recently had just a quick chat interview with what I assumed was to be a very good resume. And one of the points that really hit my attention was AI solutions expertise, in that individual rated 9 out of 10. I said, I'm very curious to know what exactly have you done in AI solutions? What applications have you used? The answer was surprisingly ChatGPT. And I said, okay, you know, the whole world is using ChatGPT, but okay, are you using ChatGPT for, and what sort of purpose have you used it for? The individual simply said, I asked questions and I obtained the answers.
That's not even 3.5 out of 10.
I said, so use it as Google search. Yeah. So in summary, something like this, if you do the proper screening and ask the proper questions related to those resumes, you'll eventually get misled and eventually hire the wrong people.
I like the way you phrase that as well. You look for marketeers, not marketing professionals. So it's much more, like Ashfaq and you were saying, much more than just skill sets. You're looking for a personality. You're looking for soft traits. You're looking for people that can come in and grow internally. And that segues perfectly into what I want to pick out from what Ashfaq said earlier about letting them come in, train internally. Ahmed, I'll come to you on this. It's a very interesting concept because we've heard the term speed a lot. Move at the speed of culture. The speed of technology is growing rapidly. It's outpacing, the current skill sets within the market. Should we then attribute that term speed to upskilling as well? Is there a need to upskill at speed within the organization? Is there a need to make that as part of our KPIs, more than just do your job and tick the boxes, to actually make it a KPI to learn, to grow continually, even within the organization?
Good morning, Anup.
Good morning.
How are you? It is really cold up here, so that's just wanted to call that out.
For the fifth time.
For the fifth time. I think it's a great question. I think upskilling at speed in this day and age is inevitable. If you're just looking at how fast a prompt is generating an output on AI, that is technically or almost as how fast we should start learning. And the way we approach that is in a couple of ways. One is the culture, right? The culture of the organization. Does this company have, or this culture have an organization, have a attitude or an ethos that embraces learning, right? Learning and failing fast. If you're not failing fast, if you're not doing experimentation, if you're not allowing people to test and learn, I think that is where there is a bit of a gap and a bit of a flaw, because you're expecting them to be here, but you're actually still there. And there's different ways of doing that. There's the ways of mentorship, for example, right? You start to match people together within the organization or outside the organization. And the other way, and I think I really liked what you said, where specifically in marketing, a lot of times when we should hire based on attitude and not industry experience. I mean, I've done 3 industries in marketing, right? And every time I come in, it's always trying to demonstrate we have transferable skills that we can take to the next place. And the other thing is micro-learning. I mean, who here is on Duolingo? Yeah. Whether you like it or not, who here uses Duolingo? I think it's what they've cracked is they've cracked a model that allows for micro-learning. It's 2 minutes a day. Maybe you're not practicing enough, maybe it's not practicing with a person, but it's allowing you to get information in, to an extent, refresh your skills and start to apply it when the time is ready. If companies start to introduce these micro-learning tools into the day-to-day, it'll help them go a long way. Unfortunately, today where we're at is the tools that we have are still somewhat very traditional. You need to leave the office, spend a week or a day or a couple of days in a course or in a workshop. By the time that course is done, and by the time mentally you're able to apply what you've learned, there's something else that's come out. Right, iOS 17 has come out. There's a new update. There's a new, and then your skills have become obsolete.
4.5 turbo ChatGPT.
It's moving so fast. Like I don't think I'm using ChatGPT 4.0 or 4.2 at the maximum capability because it's moving so fast. So I think it's culture, it's mindset, it's technology, it's a bunch of things, and companies need to be really aware of all these factors.
I like the theme that's building. Look past the CV. Look past these certifications that we've time immemorial looked at. Focus on skills. And I think I'll go back. I mentioned this in the opening speech when we started. There were 3 things. I said critical questions that we need to answer. One is what skills that were previously needed, previously looked at, what skills are not needed among those? The second is what can we not look at on the CV because we know we can learn on the job? And the third thing as leaders, and this is good for the audience to take back as well, is as leaders looking at bringing people into your team, what are the absolutely non-negotiable skills that people have to make the cut as marketeers, not marketing professionals? I'll come to you on this, Miriam, any one of the 3.
Thank you. Well, everyone mentioned a few things that resonated a lot with me as a leader, but also I just wanted to clarify that I'm not a marketeer, but I am a communicator and a brand professional. But I think we all cross over everything when it comes to talent, marketing, communication, and brand. What I look for in talent and what I don't compromise on is attitude, like Wasim said, because you can have the the greatest CV on earth. You can have the universities and the masters and the PhDs, etc. But if you have someone that doesn't have the attitude to learn fast, so it comes to what Ahmed was saying, speed, to be open to constantly coming up with solutions and not problems. So one of the things that I look for is critical thinking. How to turn a challenge into an opportunity, how to come up with a crisis management tool and plan proactively and not reactively. Right. With communication and media, we're constantly on the go. We are constantly working. I always say, it's a 7-day a week job. It's 24/7. Right. It's 365 days a year. If you're not on your phone, then you don't belong in my team. And it's not because we're slaving anyone, or it's not because we don't want anyone to be to have their own downtime or to have their weekends or even annual leaves. It's just because communication doesn't stop, media doesn't stop, storytelling doesn't stop. So the ideal candidate for such a job is someone that's open to learning, someone that's excited about communication, about brand building, about authentic storytelling, about crisis management, about content creation, about obviously digital transformation, but someone that is completely available to agility and to flexibility. Because when you have conglomerates working on campaigns, and it takes months to build up a campaign, it takes months to build up an initiative, and then suddenly we change the entire vision and we change the entire project, and I have someone on my team telling me, oh, but come on, I worked so hard on this. I'm sorry, but we need to move on now. We all worked so hard. So agility is very important. Flexibility is extremely important. I guess positive attitude is key. So what Wasim said and what everyone is, I see a lot of heads nodding, is attitude. I have a 17-year-old son that's graduating this year, going off to college. I worry about the new generation coming into the force, because I worry on two sides, if I may. I worry on their side, but I also worry on the leadership side. Because as much as we're sitting here talking about new talent, we also need to change ourselves. Absolutely. We need to be leaders that lead with example and not just, sit and point fingers. If we're expecting amazing talent, we also need to be open to learning. So I learn constantly on the job with my team. My team are all either they're in the bracket of 25 to 35. So they're really in the youth generation. I learn a lot from them because they're very open to learning. They're extremely quick, So I guess to answer your question, it's all about attitude. It's not about the experience. You can learn on the job. And thank you, Wasim, for mentioning something that is extremely important. Industries need to stop looking for experience in the industry. This is so closed-minded. I mean, come on, know?
Attitude, agility, flexibility. But I think it all goes back to have people, like you said, have the right attitude, go beyond the CV. Because if you're building brand, you need people on the team who actually love the brand, who are willing to put that effort in. They're not clocking their 9 to 5. They're not coming in. They're not just, ticking boxes on their KPIs. They're not working for a salary. They're truly building brand with you because you're growing with the brand.
If I may, just to close that subject, we also need companies to be flexible as well. Right. We cannot, if you're not expecting your team to be to not be 9 to 5 and to turn off their phone after 5 or after 6 or after whatever, and to not really answer your phone over weekends, we also need companies to be flexible. I'm not here to log in and out. Yeah. So if you want me to but if you want me to be passionate about my job and constantly be available, you also need to give me that kind of flexibility and momentum to be free to be creative. So if you're gonna, chain me, my creativity will always be chained. Yeah. So that's another thing that we need to, entities and organizations and cultures need to change.
Culture and flexibility. I love that. Ashfaq, you've been nodding. non-stop to everything that Mariam has said. So I'm going to come to you and ask you, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
She's covered most of the important parts anyway, so Mariam, you've been very thorough. But if I really have to add, and trying to dig deep here, apart from what Mariam has already added, if there are a few other things that come to mind that leaders need to seek, I think one, in my view, would be creative problem solving. Now, not every challenge out there is programmable. So lateral thinking becomes differentiator, right? So you look for people who really can solve problems that your AI may not always be capable of. And then I sound like a broken record in forums like these and in discussions internally with the organization when I talk about emotional intelligence. Right?
Take notes, everybody, because the next time you go for an interview, these are the things that you need to tell everybody, yeah?
So, you can change everything and, to stay relevant and to make the most of everything that's going around, and it's absolute madness at times, is especially in a world which, where you have remote and hybrid models. So your ability to influence, your ability to build trust is absolutely indispensable. So you got to be able to have that in people that you seek out. And probably finally, then the strategic awareness that you would want to seek in every person that you recruit. So they need to have that ability to understand and align to the vision of the organization. What is it? How does my role impact the customer, the brand, the business objectives and outcomes? So they need to have clarity, and if they don't, they quickly need to develop or demonstrate developing that ability. So those would be the key three things that I would probably add on to what Mariam said.
Can I add one more point?
Oh,
well,
please,
building on emotional intelligence, I think that is crucial, especially that we live in a world where most of the time we're sitting looking at reports, we're looking at numbers, and we need to be able to decipher what those numbers mean to the customer and have empathy and try to understand what the customer is going through. So that 100% is a non-negotiable. But I think with numbers and with what's happening nowadays with AI and technology, and this is ultimately about technology, one thing that we should also be looking at is ethical decision making, right?
Amen.
Because the whole ethics aspect with technology, and especially around AI, we're seeing so many, copycat work and so much work. Ultimately, we work with a lot of agencies. We know they work with AI. That's fine. That's cool. That's great. Just make sure it's original enough that it stands out, that it's not going to get flagged. So ethical decision making, both on the agency and the marketing and tech and partner side, is extremely important.
I like the way, we've spoken about performance, we've spoken about the technical aspects of MMTA throughout the day. I love the fact that we're going back to the initial speech that we made at the start that goes to emotional intelligence. We're talking trust, we're talking transparency, we're talking ethics, we're talking values like we did on the previous panel as well. Taking this a step further, there's an uncomfortable question coming up. We live in an industry, and I'm going to call a spade, where off late we've seen a lot of really big leaders, as well as from the agency side and marketers, I would say stepping out after years and starting boutique agencies of their own, going entrepreneurial. We've also seen a very high level of attrition, mid-level, lower level within organizations. People who want higher salaries, better jobs, yada, yada, yada. But this causes a little bit of a problem for companies, brands, and agencies, because you are trying to build a long-term brand, and that requires succession planning. Right? Now, when I spoke to a lot of marketers in our recent roundtables, one of the themes that came up is, yes, we need to do succession planning. No, it's not part of our KPIs. Yes, we need it for the long-term brand, but what if we invest that time and people leave, right? So, question to, Wasim, you've kept silent for a bit. I'll bring you back into this discussion. How do we find that balance? How do you find the balance of we need to do succession planning, we need to train, upskill, put that time into it, but in the current industry landscape?
Succession planning, it's very political.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, succession planning is most of the time a hidden agenda for some reason. And it's always driven by a CEO.
Mm.
So what happens is...
I want my brother and my sister here, and my best friends.
So the succession planning happens driven by the CEO. And what happens, let's say, okay, head of a department, you are selecting one of your successors, okay? The choice that comes in, if it's long-term, people start seeing this as just more of a myth. Okay, let's say we're talking about 5 years. 5 years is very long. If it's 1 or 2 years, maybe yes, they'll take it a bit seriously. But the reason I mentioned the CEO, why? Because I've been in organizations. The moment the CEO departs, all your succession planning is really shelved.
Mm.
Yeah. And people know this by now. So if you need to work on succession planning, it has to be implemented properly and it has to be driven from HR, not from a CEO level.
Mm.
Okay, why? Because from a CEO level or from, let's say, head of department levels, there will be a lot of preferences. Okay, so if I prefer that, I will select employee X to be my successor because we have a good relationship, but maybe that employee definitely does not have the right skill set or attitude to take my place here. In terms of employees, we said job hopping, or you know, the trend is usually 3 to 5 years for, especially for junior marketers. Yes, definitely one of the major reasons is finding better opportunities, but the top reason is toxic environments and expectations that were not really set properly in the interview. We've been in cases whereby you start a job within 3 to 4 months, a year, you're given multiple responsibilities and nothing has changed. We're not focusing so much on training. Okay, we expect people just to develop themselves personally. So when you combine all this together, your succession planning would work very well. But succession planning, I said, a lot of people don't believe in it because you'd say, I don't know if I'm going to be here for the next 3, 4 years. So it's just like a tick in the box for a lot of organizations. It should happen. I'm completely not against it. There should be a lot of loyalty, but people are just always looking around. Thanks to social media, everything's too exposed. Previously, I started to work in 2003. These early days, you were finding jobs through your communities. Today, you're headhunted frequently through LinkedIn, through other sources, right? Sometimes it's just greed. You want to have just another opportunity somewhere. So succession planning needs to happen, but needs to be driven from either board of directors or from a department perspective, not from a person from an individual, because individuals leave and eventually too many things change around, and that eventually what will stop your succession planning from working properly as well.
Mariam, realistic, not realistic, how to do it, can it be done?
I don't believe in succession planning.
There we go.
Honestly, because
that's
for
my headline
corporates,
for the day.
it's like you want to talk succession planning, you should talk about family business more than entities or organizations and corporates. And one thing Wasim touched upon is loyalty. I believe, and I always say that loyalty is a two-way street. You cannot expect your employees or your staff or your managers or your executives to be loyal to you when you're actually planning their succession behind their back. It's just, it's common sense, and it's unethical. So if there would be a succession plan, let's say someone that has been on the job for 17 years, for 20 years, and they're finally approaching, moving forward, going somewhere else, retiring, etc., you need to plan it properly in the sense that you would hire that person knowing that they would stay shadowing the other person who's leaving for a year. But what I see happening as a common practice is that succession planning usually is not transparent, and it happens constantly on the go because you're constantly looking for new talent in case that person leaves. So what it creates is it's the negative that you're always insecure about your job, that you're always insecure about your role. So it creates instability, insecurity, And eventually that person will leave, whether you like it or not. So again, we go back to loyalty. We go back to ethics, to values. If you want to solve that issue as an organization, you need to just put proper SOPs. You need to put a proper process, proper planning, just processes. How do you do this in case you're not here? How do you do this in case you're on leave, in case you're on an emergency medical leave, etc., in case you take a sabbatical? So your team knows exactly how to function without you while you're absent, but it's not a succession per se. It's more like a system. You're putting a system together for everyone to know that this is how it goes. And then transparency, communicating the system, etc. So if you decide to hop on another job tomorrow, there is a system to be followed by your successor, rather than this loophole that we see entities sometimes they create for no reason, and it usually comes from the talent acquisition, by the way. You sometimes create this instability for employees, that they hear that talent acquisition is actually hiring for your position while you're still in the office. And then it comes back, circling back to you while you're on your desk serving in your role. So loyalty is a two-way street.
I like that. So I'm going to change the headline from "I don't believe in succession planning" to "Loyalty is a two-way street," because ultimately it's an education piece, it's a value piece, it's an ethics piece. It's you get what you give, and it's the kind of culture that we build within our organizations. I will. And
Anoop, I just want to say one thing before you finish.
I like the way I'm picking your brains and you keep bouncing back. I like it.
But retention, if you're worried about your talent taking a better job or a better role, focus on how to retain them rather than how to succeed. Because succession, great, but how do you retain? Make them feel that they are actually, they belong into a family rather than just having these, family quotes, and it's not really the value that you practice. So
I like it. There is an old quote from a person I know very well. I'm not going to mention any names, but it said that more than the quotes on your wall, focus on the fact that you shouldn't have a revolving door, because the more your door revolves and the more in and out, that's a true example of your organization. It's not what's on the wall, but how your door revolves that shows the culture of your organization. Before we end, there's just one final question open to anyone, and we end with that final question. It's easy to give advice to people. What's difficult is looking internally. We as leaders, each of us, whether it's at Jumeirah, Damac, Mashrek, Hyundai, we are in positions where we are literally having a marked influence within our organizations. So here's an internal question to each of you. Feel free to answer it if you want to, is what are we doing? What are each of us individually doing to upskill ourselves, especially in a generation and in a time where technology is outpacing ourselves, where a generation that's coming up is demanding so much more of us as leaders? Wasim, Ahmed, anyone, go for it.
I think we need to start with self-awareness and staying humble, because we don't know everything, right? I think it's sometimes when you're in an organization, when you have a leader or someone who's a know-it-all, and there are generations under them that are a lot more tech-savvy, a lot more advanced, a lot more aware, and you're following someone who's kind of following a very patriarchal approach to certain things. I think that's a major red flag. So staying humble, having self-awareness. I would also add that we need to get into the habit of unlearning and relearning, right? Because unlearning something, unlearning a methodology or an approach because it used to work in the past, you need to open your mind to say, you know what, I'm ready to relearn all over again. And the problem is the speed, which was your first question for me, is very relevant. How fast can you do this? Like, how fast can you relearn something to be relevant? And mentorship could go both ways. I could mentor someone, but I could call someone from Gen Z or Gen Alpha, be like, please mentor me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I need someone to tell me and sort of put me in check and sort of, keep me honest sometimes about certain things, be it, and it's very normal. It's very like today we listened to a keynote on China. insightful. We can't pretend we knew, because there were a lot of generalizations, but there are certain things, actually there are some nuances that I never knew before. So I think it's important to embrace that from a mindset perspective, personally, culturally, and ask for feedback.
Love it.
Right? I think if you don't ask your team for feedback on certain things, it becomes, once again, very one way, right? And it becomes toxic. Right, as you said, I think there's the toxicity in leadership, I think, is a major challenge. And it needs to change when you're evolving. Leadership now is more empathetic, it's more togetherness, and the tools are there, right? I just need to have that, initial self-awareness.
Self-awareness, humility, and get feedback. I'm going to take notes. Mariam.
I love that, by the way, and especially the ego part. Like there are no egos. I would add to that to listen to your team. I'm a great advocate of humanizing anything. So humanizing brands, humanizing leadership. So lead with empathy, because honestly, if you don't listen and if you don't see what your team is going through, and you sense a few things, like you sense stress or panic or anxiety or just an overload, you will eventually lose the talent. So listening, leadership, humility, you need to give them a why. So for yourself, why do I wake up every morning to go to the office? I also need to transfer this why to them. So leadership with purpose. I would say. Yes. And mentorship is key. Mentorship is key. Don't give up on your talent. If your team is not cutting it, give them one chance after the other. Invest in them, train them, mentor them. Give them all the tools, all the skills that they need in order to develop and be the person that you aspire them to be. But giving up and just firing them or letting them go, I think it's giving up too early.
Love that. Yeah. It's going to get tougher as we go down. So Ashfaq and
Yeah,
Wasim.
I can see that. I mean, a lot of it's already taken. So
we'll keep it short. It's okay. In the previous round, they said 2 words. I'll give you 2 sentences. Let's go.
Look, for me, one of the first things that comes to mind is be open to lifelong learning, right? So you got to be receptive to everything. The second, in my view, would be kind of getting into uncomfortable territories, like whether that's getting into Discord or Roblox or TikTok trends. This is where the future generations, the newest generations, are immersing themselves and shaping that new culture. So you got to get in there to understand. And finally, learning to be data curious, not just data driven, right? So you've got AI and everything else surfacing the data. But what you really want to get into is understanding the why and learning how to do that. So for me, these are just not the soft skills, but these are the core skills every leader needs to keep learning. And in this, digital-led world, I think it's absolutely a must-have.
Wonderful. Wasim, closing words?
Yeah, they all wrapped it up, but definitely as leaders, we all have to invest a lot of time in emotional intelligence. As you grow older, as you become a leader, you can easily lose your team and lose your job because of your lack of emotional intelligence. So that's one. Second, do a lot of networking. Networking is key at this time of, it's not just online networking. Go around, meet people, you'll learn so much more. You'll be able to understand so much of what's happening in this dynamic market. And finally, yes, learning, but be practical. Try things for yourself. Open up Canva, play with it. Open up CapCut, play with it. Sit on TikTok, post silly videos, see what the world is looking at. Because your team eventually is out there. And as a boss, if you're not really within that environment, you're not going to be able to really understand the conversations. There's a lot of funny terminologies happening in Gen Z today, and sometimes I have to sit down with my daughter and get some learnings to understand what these very abbreviations actually mean. She kept saying TY, and I said, what is TY? She said, thank you. I said, no. Do we have to abbreviate a thank you now? So you have to be out there. And but I said, as my team said, as Mariam said, Ahmed and Ashfaq, it's emotional intelligence. After all, it is really a key essential element for all leaders today.
Can I build on that?
Mm-hmm.
I think emotional intelligence and ego, I think when it comes to teams and team management, also admitting to failures and demonstrating that you're okay to fail, right? Because you need to create that culture of experimentation, and it's fine because you need to humanize yourself as a leader. The second, if you don't humanize yourself and you're kind of on that pedestal, it creates this kind of barrier, and it's really dangerous.
Especially in the culture that we have in the industry. Everyone overthinks everything. We love gossiping about people. We love pointing at other people's mistakes. But we set that culture. If we said it's okay to make a mistake, it's okay for you to, rag me sometimes about a mistake that I make. And then we build that culture. We fail together. We grow together.
Yeah. And Hussein in the previous panel said there's something really interesting, which was bridging psychology and technology.
Yep.
I think that's something we, naturally in this industry, we need to do a lot more of, and that kind of cross-discipline exposure, because it's great to work with product, it's great to work with sales, it's great to work with corp comms, but I think we need to go further and work with data scientists and work like psychologists, because we need to get closer to the customers.
Love it. So that's the wrap of this event, artificial intelligence and emotional intelligence. What a great way to end this discussion. A special word of thanks to Eternity, X, Fusion 5, and CTAG, who've partnered with us on these panels, and all our wonderful panelists, moderators, delegates. Thank you to the final few who stayed back to the end. I think some of us came for the education and information piece. Some of us came for the networking, which I think everyone will have their fair share of after this. Thanks for joining us today, and that's a wrap.